Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll give it a couple more seconds to see that we can get everybody in from the waiting room.
All right, welcome everyone. It looks like the waiting room has died down, so we will go ahead and get started with our session today. Our session today is on facilitating teacher-leader collaboration meetings. And by the end of this session, take a moment to review our objectives for today's session. As you can see, our focus today for this session is grounded in understanding how to support teachers during collaborative planning opportunities. We will begin today's session with an overview of the updated assessment plan. One change in these updates is the assessment design. Review this chart to see how the assessment plan has been updated. As you can see, the students will be building knowledge to be able to respond to the culminating task, but will no longer have a cold read task nor an extension task. Instead, teachers will use the daily lesson look-fors to monitor student understanding. Each section includes a section diagnostic that will help teachers tailor the daily lessons to meet the needs of their students, so their students can be successful for the culminating task. Take a moment to study this graphic. What do you notice is different about the updated assessment approach? You can either type it in the chat or you can unmute and respond to the group. So what do you notice is different about this assessment approach? All right, Nicole said the opportunity to formally diagnose students' preparedness for the culminating task embedded throughout the unit. Carrie Phillips, she pointed out there are more diagnostics. Absolutely. So the assessment path for each unit can look different from classroom to classroom. With the built-in optional activities, teachers are able to choose which optional activities would best benefit their students. Every unit includes lesson look-fors for monitoring student progress, section diagnostics to assess student growth throughout the unit, and a culminating task to evaluate overall understanding of the unit. Let's review the updated embedded assessments. We will use the knowledge of these embedded assessments to internalize lessons and analyze data during teacher collaboration meetings. Monitoring student progress is embedded into the daily curriculum with student look-fors, which are knowledge-based and skill-related. The lessons in each section are designed to prepare students for the section diagnostic by building content knowledge through reading, writing, and having discussions about complex texts. By monitoring how students are responding to the activities with the lesson look-fors, teachers are able to make informed decisions about which optional activities to include in the lesson and which in-the-moment supports to use. Section diagnostics are included in each section, and they're designed to assess student understanding of the section and to provide insight to teachers about their students' preparedness in relation to their ability to complete the culminating task. Teachers should review student responses and discussions using the diagnostic checklist and/or exemplars. Optional activities can also be used in the following unit section to help students better access the knowledge needed in the unit and to respond effectively to the culminating task. To evaluate the student's understanding of a unit, teachers will administer the corresponding culminating task. The unit sections, lessons, and activities all lead the students to an effective culminating task response. Teachers should use the appropriate culminating task rubric to evaluate student performance and to provide feedback to their students. I know that was a lot of information in a little bit of time, so I want to pause for a moment and see what questions do you have about the information I just shared. You can unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have, or you can type them in the chat. We will have people from the ELA team monitoring the chat to respond to your questions.
So I have two questions. One, the culminating task, will it still be a culminating writing task, or will there be a cold read kind of embedded into that?
It's like a culminated writing task. It is a writing task for the end of the unit.
So will students still see the cold read type assessment on the LEAP 2025?
Are you talking specifically about the LEAP assessment?
So I just wondered, because there will use, I'm sorry, maybe I missed it. No cold reads, is that correct?
So the cold read task has not been updated for the unit. So the
Okay.
cold read task is still aligned to the previous units, but it is not included in the updated version.
Okay, I guess that was my wondering, if we're removing that element, would our students still be prepared for that end of year test?
So when you are reviewing the updates, we are still going through all of the standards and using that knowledge building with text at the center in order to build students' capacity into reading text and being able to read, write, and speak knowledgeably about those topics.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for asking your questions, Bree.
Find all of the updates on the 3rd through 5th grade units.
Can you ask your question one more time? I think the first part of it was cut off a little bit.
Yes, I was wondering where we could find the updates that have been made to the 3rd through 5th grade units.
Yes, thank you. So that is going to be at the Louisiana Curriculum Hub. Can Tara or Kenna drop that link, please, in the chat? On the hub, you will you'll be able to see 3 of the units right now. 3rd grade, Because of Winn-Dixie, 4th grade, The Whipping Boy, and 5th grade, The Birch Bark House. We are still in the process of finalizing all of the rest of the units, but those are going to be posted on a rollout basis next month.
Okay, so all of the updates will be out before the beginning of the school year?
Yes, all of them will be posted by Teacher Leader Summit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Those are great questions. So we'll go on, and again, if you have additional questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. Like I said, members of the ELA team are monitoring the chat, and we'll be answering your questions as we continue.
All right, so moving on to the next part of our agenda, we're going to explore the roles of a facilitator in collaborative planning protocols using ELA Guidebooks 3 through 5 2022 units. Let's take a moment to look at the common planning time support. All teachers of ELA and ELA support should be working together to prepare units and lessons using their curricular materials. When structuring common planning time, identify a teacher leader or administrator to facilitate the collaborative plannings. The facilitator should intentionally plan, focus, and align professional needs by creating an agenda and ensuring that participants will build an understanding of new learning. The activities participated in should improve teaching practices that can be applied utilizing student achievement data. The meeting should connect to long-term curriculum goals and include action steps for participants to apply in their classrooms, as well as developing a plan for professional support to strengthen those instructional practices. How can you implement at least one of these opportunities for support during your teachers' collaborative meetings? You can go ahead and unmute to share your thinking or add your thoughts to the chat. As you're reading through this slide for common planning time support, go ahead and share out one thing that you think could benefit your common planning times with your teachers. All right, I see that we are being a little quiet today, so that's no problem. Some things you might be noticing is that you can incorporate an agenda. You can look at how to create those professional opportunities for teachers to improve their instructional practices. And we'll go ahead and move forward in looking at more of those opportunities for collaborative planning. So there are two types of collaborative planning meetings that your teachers are participating in: lesson planning and data analysis. Both types of planning are equally important and should occur as often as possible. When teachers are lesson planning, they are internalizing the lessons and adding any additional supports, guiding questions their unique student populations can benefit from. When teachers are analyzing data, they are reviewing student samples and identifying possible supports for accelerated learning. As a facilitator for lesson internalization collaborative meetings, you will need to plan for and manage these meetings. To begin, there should be predetermined planning dates that are designed for uninterrupted teacher collaboration. Next, to ensure that all planning participants understand their role in the meeting and are prepared to plan, send an agenda out prior to the meeting. Then identify any pre-work and required materials that are needed when the agenda is shared with teachers. Afterwards, set team norms that will benefit productivity and effective collaboration. Lastly, before the meeting ends, identify next steps, due dates, and identify who is responsible for each task. In the next part of our session, we will focus on the protocols for a unit and lesson internalization collaborative meeting. The first protocol we will review is the unit study protocol. This unit study unpacking tool gives a high leverage understanding of the unit goals. In ELA guidebooks, the activities, lessons, and sections build students' knowledge and skills in preparation for the unit assessments. Additionally, the culminating tasks for each unit aligns to end-of-year expectations and grade level standards. This unit study protocol involves 3 steps. In the chat, you're going to see that we have an example of the American Revolution unit study tool and the unit study tool as a blank option. Tara, can you go ahead and share your screen with the American Revolution unit study tool example? Thank you. So on this example, you're going to see these 3 steps, starting with the end in mind, looking at the unit title and the central question, and also that culminating task. Next, you're going to be looking at what knowledge and skills the students are going to need in order to answer the culminating task question. You can go ahead and scroll down. The next section involves looking at all of the text, the anchor text and related text of the unit. So you're going to be pulling out what knowledge the student should be getting from the text in order to respond to that culminating task, how the text and knowledge provide supports for the culminating task, and then what areas of complexity may the students need assistance with. You can scroll through that. And go up a little bit more, sorry, that 3rd step right there. And then lastly, we're going to be looking at those section diagnostics from the unit as a whole. So your teachers would look at each section individually, that section diagnostic, and then they would tag the knowledge and skills needed to answer each of those section diagnostic tasks. So you have an example. This is done for the American Revolution unit. And you also have that blank copy to be able to share with your teachers as well. All right, Tara, we can go back to the presentation. So to maintain the integrity of the backwards design model, teachers use the following steps when unpacking a new unit to teach. Step 1 ensures that teachers start unpacking with the end in mind. The ELA Guidebooks instructional approaches include reading, discussing, presenting, and writing. Teachers look for connections to these approaches as they unpack the unit. Teachers will need access to the unit overview and the evaluation plan to complete this step. Step 2 reminds teachers to keep text at the center. Before teaching the unit, teachers read through the text and excerpts that are included. As they read, they determine the big ideas and connections to the culminating task. Teachers annotate the text to indicate where more support may be needed. For example, teachers may add in guiding questions or vocabulary supports. Teachers will need access to the text identified for each unit. Step 3 traces high leverage knowledge and skills through assessment. During this step, teachers write exemplars for each section diagnostic and the culminating task. Teachers determine the knowledge and skills the student should know in order to respond to each section diagnostic. These knowledge and skill look-fors should be considered high leverage and serve as a foundation for instructional decision-making. Teachers will need access to the Louisiana Curriculum Hub to access the unit's lessons and the teaching guides. The next protocol we will review is filtering down to the lesson level. So this is the lesson study protocol for each section. After teachers have unpacked the unit, they will begin unpacking the sections lesson by lesson. This protocol follows the same structure as the unit study protocol, but teachers are filtering the information down to that lesson level in order to plan for daily instruction. The section diagnostics assist teachers in determining whether or not students will be successful on the culminating task. This means that understanding how to support students along the way is essential to planning at the lesson level. There may be times that require your teachers to make adjustments to the lesson to meet the needs of their unique student populations through acceleration. When these changes are made, teachers should justify the needs of these supports through annotations on their lesson plans or teaching guide. Now, Tara, let's go ahead and look at that example for the section study tool with American Revolution. At first, you're going to notice that these are very similar. These two study tools are very similar. What you're going to be looking at specifically with this is that teachers are engaging in this section study tool after they have already unpacked the unit. So we've unpacked the unit, now we're looking specifically at one section. Go back up to the top, please, Tara. All right, so step one, you're revisiting that culminating task, but now your focus is going to be that specific section diagnostic. And you're going to be tagging that knowledge and skills again for that one section diagnostic. This is information that teachers will be able to get from that unit study tool. So at this point, we're just pulling all that information that we've already thought through in that unit study tool back to the forefront when we're looking at each individual section. Go ahead and scroll down, please, Sarah. Again, taking that information from that unit study tool, teachers are going to be looking at the specific texts in that section. So instead of just being general, when we're looking at, for this example, Magic Treehouse, we're tagging the specific chapters that are being read in Magic Treehouse and what information they can take from that chapter to answer the section diagnostic. Previously, the unit study tool was focusing on answering that culminating task. Now we're looking strictly at that section diagnostic. You can continue scrolling. And then after you have looked through the text of the section, you're going to be looking specifically at each lesson within that section, and you're going to be looking at those look-fors. So you're going to see what the knowledge is in the look-fors of that lesson, and then what the skills are included for that lesson. And your teachers are continuing to filter down that information into their daily lesson planning. So we went from a high leverage, looking at the entire unit with the end of the unit task, that culminating task, and we filtered it down to that one section, and we're looking into that section diagnostic, seeing how those lessons get your students to being successful in responding to the task for the section diagnostic. Okay, we can go back to that presentation. So similarly to that unit study tool, you're going to maintain the integrity of that backwards design model further, and teachers should use the following steps to unpack each section included in the unit that they are focusing on for instruction. When teachers are planning collaboratively each week, they will want to start by reviewing the completed unit study tool. Remember, they've already thought through a lot of this information at a high leverage level, so we're just filtering it down to be more specific. Use the information you unpacked today to drive your weekly lesson plannings. They will use a lot of the same information from the unit study tool, but narrowing that focus down to the individual lessons. Step 2 includes annotating lessons to support all students. Read through this list to see what types of annotations you will see to help plan for support of all students. Your teachers should note the purpose of each activity in question, create exemplars, identify areas that may cause misconceptions, develop additional questions, adjust timings or groupings, and identify which optional activities to use to determine any additional small group targeted support as needed. After teachers have determined what will be included in their lesson, it's time to look at those materials. The materials are identified and prepared beforehand. A procedural and explicit instructions for distribution and implementation should also be decided. And teachers prepare those anchor charts and technology as needed prior to their lesson. So now that we have had a moment to look at internalizing lessons as a whole for part of those collaborative plannings. I'm going to pause here for any questions. I'm also looking back through the chat to make sure we haven't missed anything. Okay. If you think of any questions as we move forward, please continue adding to the chat and someone from my team will be able to respond to it. We'll have another opportunity for questions at the end of our session. So if it comes up, don't worry, we'll be able to answer them before we leave today. All right, let's go ahead and move on to that next section. Now let's look at another type of teacher collaboration meeting that is centered around data collection and analysis. Similarly to planning for instruction collaboratively, there should be a second predetermined set of planning dates that are designated for uninterrupted data analysis. Norms for this type of meeting may be different from your instruction planning norms. Identify the assessment your team will be analyzing data from and identify what teachers should complete before attending the data analysis meeting. This may include writing an exemplar, creating a success criteria, and grading or categorizing samples based on knowledge and skills demands. By the end of the meeting, teachers should have personalized acceleration plans for their unique student populations. So let's go ahead and dive into the protocol for analyzing student data. Let's review some tools that will help teachers plan to support diverse learners. Reference guides can be located on the Louisiana Curriculum Hub under Materials. The Planning to Support Diverse Learners Protocol data collection tool and supports flowchart can be found on the Louisiana Believes website. These links are also being dropped into the chat. When planning to support diverse learners, you will first need to fill in the data collection tool for one of those embedded assessments like the section diagnostics. You will summarize this data to identify common areas of strength and accelerated learning opportunities. Then you'll be able to categorize the samples based on the needs for the knowledge and skills identified. Tara, can you go ahead and click on the data collection tool? So as your as your teachers are going through their data for those section diagnostics, this is an opportunity for them to filter through that data and make a personalized acceleration plan for their students. So the first part is looking at the section diagnostic and looking through that teacher created exemplar. There's also exemplars included in the unit, but it's also good for your teachers to go through that process to fully understand those knowledge and skills that the students are going to have to answer successfully. You can scroll down. Next, you'll see that you'll have reading look-fors to identify when you're looking at your samples. So you will have your whole class of data and you would start to group them based on the knowledge and skills that they are mastering. So then you're going to get those personalized groupings based on this data. You can go down. And here's the skills portion as well. So you have that knowledge and skills to be able to get your individualized groups. And one more time down. And lastly, you're going to look at that plan. You're going to see the common areas of strength that your students are completing, and then also those common areas that are needing some support as well. So this is how you can use this data to support your planning process in the future. We can go back to the presentation. Perfect. Once you have accelerated learning opportunities identified, preview the upcoming lessons and look for opportunities to support this group of students. Identify what specific needs should be addressed. Review the supports and optional activities to see if these will be enough to support your unique group of students. If it's not enough, identify additional support students might need and access the available resources for the unit. Continue adding to your annotations to support your informed teaching decisions and implementing each lesson with your unique classroom populations. In step 4, teachers decide on the tools and resources they will use to support all of their learners. And this is going to be specifically those reference guides.
Good. How many people did you feed?
Especially those reference guides and the supports flow chart. Can we go ahead and click on the reference guides?
Well, I know you just Brad Digger that.
All right, so in these reference guides, you're going to notice that it says grades 3-5 table of contents and grades 9-12 table of contents. We are focusing on 3-5 today, so we're going to be focusing in on those reference guides. So you will notice here that there are 9 separate guides included in this resource. These are student-facing resources for students to use throughout the units, throughout the lessons, in order to support these instructional strategies. So we'll look at this discussion reference guide just as an example to see what exactly the students can use from it. So this is an updated version of the conversation stems. Previously in the versions of from 2018, you will see that there are conversation stems. We have updated those to include listener prompts as well as speaker prompts to help students differentiate between the part of the conversation that they are in. You can scroll down a little more. And there's different scenarios for each student. So for example, this table is for specifically evidence. Here's to clarify understanding, to challenge a participant's thinking. And then it goes on to the different sample discussion norms that may be introduced as those types of discussions are included in the activities. All right, we can go back to the presentation. And lastly, in step 5, teachers have that plan put together so they can annotate those teaching guides and to reflect on the data analysis and make informed instructional decisions to support all of their students. So we have gone through both scenarios as far as teacher collaboration for internalizing lessons, as well as data analysis. So now that you've had an opportunity to hear those pieces of information, I would like for you to add to the chat one thing that you can take away from today and one thing you plan to incorporate in your collaborative meetings.
Allie, I just wanted to flag definitely questions in the chat.
Okay. Let me see where we are, where the questions start. Okay, I think I see. So K2 is not being updated right now. Our next wave of updates is going to be for 6-8. So there's no plan as of right now for K2 to be updated, but there could be discussion about it later on. The diagnostic. Okay, thank you for asking this question. So this is a common question we've been getting. Is the diagnostic given before the unit begins? This is not the case. Our section diagnostics are to diagnose the student learning, just like if you were to go to the doctor for a cold, you're going to get diagnosed with a cold and then you get some medication. So that's the same kind of idea that we're using with these diagnostics. We've given the information to the students, and the students go ahead and show us what they know from that section. And then we're able to use that data in order to drive the instruction and the supports we use in the next section to hopefully get them to be successful on that culminating task. So the diagnostic is already included in the sequence of the lessons. It is one of the last lessons in each section. So you don't have to think about planning to implement this. It's already included in the sequence of the lessons. And the next question was, what does the diagnostic look like? So the diagnostic is either going to be a discussion, a writing, a discussion or writing. So that way students are either speaking knowledgeably about their topics or writing. All right. Has anything regarding the text and the lessons changed from the 2018 versions of these units? So these updates are exactly that, updates to the 2018 units. Basically, the text lists have all been reviewed and revised. So some of the texts have gone out of print and we no longer have access to ordering those texts, and we've had to replace them. We've also looked into some other texts that would benefit students as well to enhance the units. So the text lists have all been updated. Also, changes include the implementation of the Writing Revolution writing strategies. So there is a heavier focus on writing throughout the entire unit, and those activities are embedded throughout each section. So when you're looking at these updates next to the 2018 version, you will notice there are lots of changes. So there have been major updates from those units. Great, we see that you've learned how the study tools work together and incorporate splitting the data analysis and lesson plannings into 2 different meetings. Additional instructional tools will be great to use in cluster meetings. The data collection tools to help students personalize teaching based on data. It really does give like a great little snapshot, visual representation of all of your students at one time. So that is great to personalize the teaching. Oh, great, Brittany. I'm glad we were able to provide something that's brand new to you. Yes, the study tools are very helpful when looking at so much information at once, especially when it's brand new updates. Perfect. All right, so there's this question here about the slides for lessons for the Writing Revolution embedded. So in these updates, we don't have Google Slides available for you to download. It's all through the Louisiana Curriculum Hub. So what that means is the lessons are broken into separate activities. Students are reading, writing, discussing on the topics of each lesson. And when they are writing, they are incorporating the writing strategies from the Writing Revolution. So those are all embedded in those activities for the students to flow through that content. Seeing lots of excitement about the study tool, good deal. will student workbooks be printed, or will there just be ones we print to use? So we do, so this question comes from Heather about Writing Revolution being embedded and about student workbooks. So we do provide unit tools. Those tools are both graphic organizers to help comprehend the text, as well as the TWR strategy tools that are included as well. So you can get those one of two ways. They are on the hub for you to download, or you can go through Xanadu to get personalized printed books for the units you are implementing, as well as what pieces that you want printed in a book from Xanadu. So they have all of those documents for you to order through them as well. Another question about where is TWR embedded? They are embedded through every single lesson. So when you go through each lesson in those updated units, you will notice that there is at least one TWR activity in every single lesson. So they are all the way throughout. Team, were we able to drop the TWR progression document?
Yes, I dropped it in there.
Oh, thank you, Chantel. So that progression document that was dropped in the chat will also show you how TWR is embedded throughout the unit and how it starts at the sentence level and goes all the way through paragraph writing. So there's a question about assessments and grading for a grading period. So as far as the assessments that are in the unit, there are, we have those lesson look-fors, we have the section diagnostics and the culminating task. Just like the previous versions, that culminating task could easily be used as a summative assessment. And those section diagnostics, as well as those activities throughout the unit, would also be able to be used as formative grades. As far as additional summative assessments, that's going to be a district school-based decision on how you incorporate those assessments. I know some teachers are looking for like other opportunities for cold read assessments you can pull in there, as well as using other materials from the unit as well. There was a question about purchasing new texts. In the overview document that has been posted in the chat, you will see that the text lists have been provided. So you can look through the text lists that are in the overview document and coordinate what that looks like for what you already have. And then that way you can see if there are additional text that you need to purchase for the specific units you're looking to implement. These slides, Tara, were you able to drop the slides in the chat? Can you go ahead and drop it one more time? We have some people looking for the slides to this presentation.
Yeah, I'll drop it again.
Thank you so much. Question about cold reads and the extension tasks. So the cold reads and extension tasks were not updated for this version of Guidebooks. Some of those texts have been incorporated into the unit. Some of them have been removed. So you are welcome to look through those cold reads and extension tasks that used to be in, that are in those previous versions, and see what works best with the updated versions. The extension tasks, depending on the unit, may have been incorporated into the lessons specifically for students to gain that content knowledge. All right, I see those slide decks are being dropped. Please help me if I am missing any of the questions. There is a question about the state agreeing to using the diagnostic as an assessment grade. That is a district decision and a school decision on which assessment grades that you choose to put in your grade books. So when you are looking at the hub, the Writing Revolution activities, some of the activities are background activities. So if it looks like it doesn't match the content of the unit, it's probably because it is a background activity that is used to introduce the skill to students before they use it in content. I'm seeing that we let us know if you have not been able to get any copies of those documents. Hopefully we can get those to you. Before I continue on with these questions, Tara, let's go ahead and progress the presentation, and I'll continue to answer these in just a moment. So next steps as far as what you can do with these teacher collaborative meetings is designate those common planning times for your teachers to meet. Designate 2 times of uninterrupted planning for teachers to be able to dig into these materials. The Louisiana Curriculum Hub, you want to review those units as they are uploaded and start to dig through what those updates look like. And then also you want to make sure you have a facilitator to lead and manage those collaborative meetings. All right. Let's see. We are at the end of our session, guys. I don't have any additional information to share with you. Tara, one more click, please. Here is the ELA Guidebooks email. If you email this address, you are getting one of us, and we are responding to you daily. So it's a very quick response that you can guarantee to reach one of us. So if you don't have any questions and you're ready to hop off, feel free to do so and just grab this email address in case a question comes up. But I am going to continue answering these questions in the chat until our time is over at 2 o'clock. So again, if you are ready to hop off, have a great weekend. If not, go ahead and keep adding those questions to the chat. I'll get to as many of them as possible.